what are some pieces of advice that you feel like you could give to companies in that scenario?
Yeah, I think really understanding why you're putting on an event in the first place is the best advice I could get. And would it better serve?
Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Wedgies podcast. We are joined again by our friend Joe Canfield. We're going to talk a little bit about the tournament landscape and just kind of the changes that we're seeing in golf in that realm. So, Joe, welcome back. We're glad to have you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
The last few times we've hung out, we've been out on the golf course, so it's a little nicer to be back in the boardroom, back in the meetings and all that kind of stuff. How's the game looking these days?
I've been playing pretty good lately, actually. Passed the PAT for my PGA stuff, which is great. I did a whole breakdown of that on the Fairways to Fortune podcast, so we won't get into that here. But it's been playing well. It's been fun, man. I've played more golf this year than I've played any other year, and so it's been that's like the biggest thing is how often you can get out and play. Is like the more you play, the better you can get.
100%.
I mean, the 90s are still there for me. And they show their head every once in a while, but we saw Scotty shank one on Sunday, so it happens to the best of them. So, but yeah, it's been good, and playing with you guys has always been fun.
Yeah. We don't have to go all the way into detail because I know you and I have chatted a lot about the process of becoming a PGA professional and everything like that, but maybe just a high level, like what are the steps that you have to go through? Because it was way more than I realized at first.
Yeah, same for me, and I'm in the middle of going through it. And so, first of all, to back up a little bit, like to be a PGA professional is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And there's only about 30,000 members of the PGA, and very different from the PGA Tour. PGA of America, completely different entity.
You're not going pro.
Not going pro. Well, technically, I am a pro golfer now.
Yeah.
But not a professional golfer. I'm a golf professional, right? So there's 3 levels to it. The first thing you have to do is pass the player ability test. Well, you go through like a background check and a few, things that you kind of check boxes for. No big deal. But then there's 3 different levels. You have a playing ability test. Past that, and now I have to go through a whole bunch of coursework. It's like being back in school all over again. And in a week here, I have to sit on Zoom all day, every day for the whole week and sit through a seminar and go through all these things about, you learn everything from how to run a pro shop to managing tournaments, which is something I'm super passionate about. I love working on tournaments and helping people kind of build cool events there and create lasting memories for people. So learning that from the PGA perspective and the PGA tournament or PGA professional perspective has been super helpful for me when I'm out there helping other people with their events as well.
Totally. Well, that's really one of the things we want to talk about today, because obviously, you have the Fairways to Fortune podcast, which we've been awesome to be a part of and to get to not only been guests one time, but also get to see you, a lot of the guests that you run through there and talking about, how you can build relationships and all that. But a lot of what we've been talking about behind the scenes has come down to those tournaments and those kind of things like that. So I think kind of my first question for you as we dive into tournaments and golf tournaments, and it's something that we all have played in so many of them, whether it's a charity event, a competitive event, all the way going back to my high school days to now. What role do you think tournaments, kind of the public tournament landscape, plays in the world of golf?
There's a lot of different thoughts on this for sure. And depending on what perspective you're looking at it from, like, I'm going to take the perspective of a big corporation, like, hey, I'm hosting a tournament. I want all my clients to come out. There's a couple of different things that's going to do for you. One, it's going to create goodwill with your customers and whoever comes, right? But it also is a reflection on you as a brand and as a company, right? So I've played in so many tournaments, and you guys have as well, and the good tournaments from the bad tournaments.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And sometimes going into it, like some charity events, like they're doing it as cheap as they possibly can because they want to raise as much money as they possibly can for the cause, right? And so they're cutting costs where they can and asking for donations in other spots. But then you've been to corporate tournaments that are like, holy cow, like this is incredible. Like the swag bag's amazing. Like I've got great stuff. I want to come back to this. And you remember that. You remember who you were with. You remember the people that put that on. You remember the brands you interacted with. You'll remember the sponsors you interacted with. But then on the other side of that too is you'll remember the bad experiences too. Like I have a handful of events that they happen every single year, and every time I get invited, I tell them no, because I'm like, look, like I love playing golf, I love playing with you guys, but 7 hours on a golf course doing that, like not something I want to be a part of again. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where things start to go wrong for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've talked a lot about, the differences between the good ones and the bad ones. In your mind, what is like the biggest thing, or maybe the top 3 things that you're like, okay, whenever I go into a tournament, because you get invited to a lot,
Mhm.
what are the things that separate the good ones from the bad?
Well, I mean, obviously there's like pre-existing relationships with people, right?
Yeah.
And so whoever asks, like, great, let's go play. You go take an invite from your buddies all day, every day, right?
And Joe is the greatest partner to play with.
Oh
the
my
very
God.
first time that we played together, we played in a tournament, and Joe brought this massive cooler filled with Gator Light and Uncrustables and protein bars. And it was honestly one of the
Energy
funnest rounds
drinks.
I've played
Hey,
this year.
If you want to win, you got to stay. You got to have the right nutrition on the golf course, right? So you got to
you
be
did
the one
that.
that
We
brings
played like a random round on a Saturday one week. Same thing. Uncrustables, Gatorades. It's awesome.
This is the thing that I love about golf, though, is like you have a chance to create an experience every time you go out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can think through that, like I've been rushed to the tee and like I don't have anything with me. I'm like, crap, I didn't bring tees, or
Yeah.
I didn't bring a glove, or like all that kind of stuff. And you just have a crappy day. And so I love being able to go out on the golf course and having this experience ready to go. And I think through tournaments the exact same way, right? The more effort and the more work that you can put into them up front to deliver that awesome experience to people is well worth it, because the way that they're going to walk away from it, right? They're going to walk away. They're going to have that great positive interaction with you, with your brand, with the people that they're with. And so putting that type of effort into stuff, even if it is just going out and playing with people, like that's something I just love to do, to just create those memories for people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with that kind of being the case, obviously a lot of charity events that, most of us go to, we're not going there necessarily to be competitive, to try and win. Obviously you got your pencil whippers that are going to show up and say, okay, I shot a 22 today or something stupid like that.
Biggest frustration.
And that is a big frustration with those kind of events, but there is still expectation going into those events that you're not going to just be experiencing a day on the course like you would if you just booked normal tee time.
Yeah.
From your experience, what turns it from, okay, this is a tournament and this is a good event, versus I might as well have just booked a tee time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the interaction that you get when you show up, like from the first minute you get out of the car, like you have that experience, right? I get invited to play at tournaments at Hidden Valley, and I love the way that they do it. They stage their golf carts when you pull into the property. Their golf carts are all staged, and you have to pull through the golf carts. And they have attendants there, and you pop your trunk. They pull your bag out. They say, "What's your name, sir?" They take your bag for you. They throw it on the cart for you. Like that's from the minute you step on the property, they're taking care of you.
Mm-hmm.
Another place where I think you see a lot of difference between a maybe poorly ran event versus a really well ran event is how the sponsors will interact with the players when you're on the golf course. Are they sitting there with a table and chairs and a tent and just kind of look disinterested and not really want to be there, or are they actually interacting with you? They have a cooler with drinks. What kind of swag are they giving away? Like, what is that interaction with the sponsors like? Because I think that gets overlooked. Like a lot of the event organizers think, okay, I need to get sponsors to my event, and they don't think about how they're helping create that experience for the players that are in their event as well.
Yeah, and I think the ones that I've noticed, to your point, it's like, yes, there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be laid, but whoever or whatever organization is running the event, like thinking through the experience of both the sponsor but also the player, I think is so crucial, because oftentimes it is just those little things of like, hey, let's have 1 or 2 guys that are already part of the committee unload people's bags and put them on a cart. Like that's one thing that in the grand scheme of things I don't think requires a ton of effort, but it's one of those like, holy cow, this is a premium experience, right?
Yeah. And it's a couple hours for somebody to do something like that while people are showing up. And then once everything's loaded, everyone's ready to go, they're done, and they can move on to another, whatever else it needed to do that day, right? Whether it's driving around on the cart, making sure sponsors have what they need on their holes, going around for players with a drink cart or whatever that looks like. Like there's just those little pieces of extra effort that can go into these things that they don't cost you anything, maybe a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
But it can take that day from being like, okay, that was fine. It was great to go out and play golf. I mean, the other thing too is like on a course for 5 hours, 6 hours, sometimes for these scrambles, right? You just need to know that they take that long. But if there's nobody out on those holes that are wanting to interact with you, like it gets boring to be with the same people for that long, for like no matter who it is, right? Like there's ways to make it fun and to have some games and some other variability and stuff, but really educating sponsors on like who it is at your event, who they're talking to, can really go a really long way to create an awesome experience for people.
Totally. Well, I think what could kind of be a cool exercise as we're here when we have a little bit of time left is if you were to build your dream tournament. Okay, say money's not an issue, anything's not an issue. You're kind of saying like, hey, I'm here to be able to build my dream tournament. And we don't need to go through every detail. But what are 3 things that you would want to make sure that you could include in your dream tournament?
Oh, man. First of all, I'd pick an awesome venue. I think the venue goes a long way.
100%.
Second, awesome swag bag, awesome gift bag. And I think through it the first, like, what is my experience when I step onto the property, right? So awesome menu, awesome swag bag. And then I would say food and snacks throughout the entire round, like, and good snacks. Like, I don't want your granola bars. I want the Uncrustables. I want
That's
Gatorade.
a shot at us. He's taking a shot.
Yeah, right.
Yikes.
It wasn't a shot at you guys.
Right.
It wasn't a shot. You guys with the long day challenge, you had all the snacks out there, and you're out there for 36
This year was
holes.
good,
You guys
yeah.
got to have good stuff out there.
Need snacks.
I hear First Tee Jerky's coming next year, though, right?
Hopefully.
All right.
Hopefully.
I would say that. Like, I think those 3 elements really go a long way. So, what's my experience when I step on the property? What is the course condition like? And not everybody's going to care about that. Like, obviously I play a lot of golf, and so I care about those things. Like, I want to play a nice golf course, and I'll go play anywhere. I play munis all the time. I played Meadowbrook like 5 times this year, and that place is in horrible condition. Like,
We played it last
A
week.
few days ago.
Yeah.
There's more dirt than grass.
Yeah, they didn't have any water for the first half of the
Oh
year, and so
my
all their
God.
fairways died. But like, you can still go out there and have fun. But like, if you can go play, a private club that you don't have access to 365 days a year, like just being able to have access to something like that goes a long way with players.
Yeah, that's something that we've noticed for sure with our tournament. It's not a private course by any means, but it's kind of one of those courses that's just a hidden gem, and that's not so hidden anymore, but it's always busy. It's so hard to find a tee time there. And we've had guys come to us and say, like, this is literally why I play in your tournament, because it's the only time that I can
It's a guaranteed
tee time and play both courses, right?
Yeah. We've had it so lucky. So I grew up playing at Wasatch and Soldier Hollow, right?
Yep.
And it wasn't until, I can't remember what the golf tournament was. It was a few years ago, but they were showing something about Justin Thomas. And he said one of his favorite holes is number 15 on the silver course at Soldier Hollow.
Justin Thomas?
Justin Thomas. It had a picture of him playing 15 at Soldier Hollow. And I was like, that is unbelievable. And then I would play with, I'd go out as a single over there and I'd play with people from out of town, and they were like, this is a bucket list course for us. Like,
Yeah.
this is unbelievable. And I'm like, whoa, I've been taking this for granted for way too long, like of how great this golf course is. And so I feel like having the perspective is tough, and to step outside of yourself and understand, like, okay, what I want in a golf experience is not necessarily what the audience that's coming to my tournament wants, right?
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get sucked into that. Like, I really want this experience. I want nice golf course. I want awesome golf carts. I want food and sponsors at every single turn. Like, I want everything taken care of. But like, some people that may be their only time they play golf that year, right?
Yeah.
And so their experience is going to be, and their expectation is completely different than what ours might be, right?
Yeah. And to that point, what advice could you give to companies that are running their own tournaments that help them avoid some of those pitfalls of, like, we want to run a tournament, but we want it to be very specific, but, just by the nature of it, like, we kind of just get who we get. Like, what are
serve you to take maybe your top 24 clients out and give them some sort of awesome experience, rather than spend a whole bunch of money on a tournament that maybe half the field goes, that was horrible, I don't want to ever do that again. Or take a step back and be like, okay, if we just entertain, 24, 36, maybe even 72 of our top clients and take them down to St. George, or we depending on the budget, we send them out to Bandon Dunes or something like that. Is that going to be a better payoff in the end than putting on a full field tournament for you.
Yeah, because we talked about this earlier today, right? Of what does success look like, and I think a lot of local tournaments and local companies are often looking at it in terms of, okay, I paid $2,000, I want to get at least $2,000 back, if not more. Why is that a little bit flawed?
I think the perception, well, first off, let's back up. A lot of tournaments will go after their sponsorships based off of how much money they need to cover the cost of their tournament, right? My event is going to cost us this much, and so I need to go get this much in sponsorship. And the minute you look at it through that lens, you've lost, because what you really need to understand is my event is going to generate this much value for sponsors, and that is what I need to go out and sell it for. And I run into this a lot where people say, I need $5,000 to run this event. I'm going to go sell a sponsorship for $5,000. But they have like 6,500 people showing up to their event, right? Or whatever it is. And it's like, well, you just gave away a ton of value, right? And so it goes both ways. Like, you could have gone and sold that event for $25,000, and now you can go run it for the next 5 years and not even worry about it, right? You have that budget. You understand that you can bring other people in. And so taking the step back, understanding why you're running the event and understanding the value that you're giving people, and the value that you give people, like we talked about, if you played at a nice course, the value that you're giving that sponsor is higher, right?
Yeah.
And to set that expectation of, you guys are going to spend $1,500 on a sponsorship or whatever it is, you should expect to sell $2,000 of product at our event. Like, that just sets you up for failure in the beginning, because you've set that anchor and that expectation for that sponsor. And if they don't walk away with that profit, no matter how many contacts they made, no matter how great their brand was represented, no matter how many people saw what they do, they're going to feel like they lost.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're running a little low on time, but as we're kind of wrapping up here, I would love to kind of hear, okay, as you're talking to, say the charity event runner who, like, they're in that perspective where they don't have all the capital, they don't have all the money, they don't have all this, they're looking for sponsors, whatever it might be. What is the piece of advice that you would give them so that they would be able to make the most out of what they do have?
Yeah. I'd lean on the staff at the golf course as much as you can, and make sure that your communication with the pro and the assistant pro or whoever's been assigned to you is super like locked down. Like, you're talking to them weekly, if not more, right? There's a lot of, and going through the PGA stuff has taught me this a little bit. Like, PGA people are trained a certain way to run tournaments, right? They're staging golf carts, they're printing scorecards, they're taking scorecards, and that's about all they're going to do, right? They may do a little bit of food service for you and a few things like that, but like, they're not going to run your whole signage out to the holes. No. They're not going to go and help your sponsors get to where they need to be. Yeah. And so making sure that communication between you and the golf course is locked down, like, that is where you can ensure, like that's where an event can be successful or be a complete bust. Is if that communications breakdown happens, good luck. Yeah.
And, you're currently working on various product offerings, so to speak, that will help people, whether, really tailor fit to any budget. How can people find you? Where can they go to get you as a resource? And kind of maybe explain a little bit about what it is you're building.
Yeah. So, I've spoken a lot about fairways and what we've done there, and training people to use golf for networking. And we're pivoting a little bit to focus mostly on events, and helping people in that space. And so we're actually building a playbook for people to run their own event, right? Everything from what you should expect from the golf course to what you need to be doing on your own, like we talked about, and then those kind of tips and tricks for creating a better experience for your guests and your sponsors, right? And then we're also helping a lot of events. One of the events that we're involved with is the Varden Invitational. It's happening down at Black Desert, which is a completely different format from a scramble, but an awesome way for them to represent their brand, right? And then we will do everything for you. If you want to host a golf event and you want to blow it out of the water, like, you can call us and we'll sit down with you, your team, figure it out what it is exactly that you want to accomplish from a golf event, and then go out and make that happen for you. So best way to follow us right now is just through LinkedIn on myself. So just at Joe Canfield on LinkedIn. And then with the help of you guys, I'm now an Instagram viral superstar, as I like to tell people. So I'm also on Instagram, and I give some tips and tricks over there as well. And that's just at Fairways RM for now.
Totally.
Yeah, and if there's anyone that wants to get in touch with Joe, you can reach out to us as well through our channels, and we'd be happy to put you in touch.
And we can put our money where our mouth is, because we, even with our own events and own things that we're involved in, we're bringing Joan on as a resource, because it's that good.
I'm already talking to people about long day for next year, and it's exciting. And the conversation that happens with that is so much fun, because they realize really quickly this isn't just another scramble. So it's unique. It's a fun one to have.
No, we're excited to see you continue to build, and we'll obviously have you on again and get more updates. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Joe.